Have you ever tried to break a bad habit? Like late night snacking or smoking or just mindlessly scrolling on your phone for hours? Yeah, if you've struggled with that, you are definitely not alone. But what if I told you that all that common advice, just use more willpower, is actually setting us up to fail? Well, today, we're going to explore a surprisingly simple, science-backed way to break that cycle for good. So let's get right into it. Why is it so ridiculously hard? You tell yourself, okay, no more. But a few hours later, there you are, right back where you started. It feels like a total failure of self-control, doesn't it? But the real reason is actually way, way deeper. And it has a lot less to do with your willpower than you think. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about the unwinnable fight we're having with our own brains. Then we'll dive into your brain's habit loop and exactly why willpower just isn't enough. Then comes the fun part, a curious twist, how to go from just knowing something to really feeling it, and finally, how to build a brand new habit loop. Okay, part one, the unwinnable fight. Let's start with why this whole thing feels like such an impossible uphill battle. I mean, if you've ever tried to just sit and focus on one thing, you know how quickly your mind just drifts off. This isn't some personal flaw, okay? It's a built-in feature of your brain's ancient operating system. So what's this 50% all about? Well, get this. Studies show that even when we are actively trying to pay attention, our minds are going to wander about half the time. Half! It's this constant internal tug of war, and it's happening to every single one of us. So here's the big takeaway from that. You're not just fighting a bad decision or a moment of weakness. No, you are fighting one of the most deeply ingrained, evolutionarily conserved learning processes known to science. It's a survival mechanism that's been hardwired into our brains for millennia. You're literally fighting your own programming. So, to break a habit, we first got to understand how it even gets built in the first place. And it all comes down to this really simple 3-step process that's just running on a loop over and over inside our brains. And this process, it's called reward-based learning. It's how we learn to walk, to talk, to find food, basically to survive. It's incredibly powerful and super efficient. It goes like this. There's a trigger, which leads to a behavior, which delivers a reward. And that reward sends a little message to your brain that says, hey, remember this, do it again. Let's look at a really primal example. Imagine one of our ancestors sees some berries. That's the trigger. The behavior? Eat the berries, of course. And the reward? Well, they taste good, you get some energy, and you survive. Simple. The brain just lays down this super effective memory. See food, eat food, feel good. Trigger, behavior, reward. But, and this is a big but, here's where things get complicated. Our modern, creative brains took that same survival loop and applied it to something brand new, managing our feelings. It's like our brain thought, hey, if this works for finding food, why not use it for when I feel bad? And boom, that's how a modern bad habit is born. The trigger isn't hunger anymore. It's an emotion, like stress or boredom or sadness. The behavior becomes eating a cookie or smoking a cigarette or scrolling through social media. And the reward? Just a few moments of temporary relief. And the brain learns, when you feel bad, do this thing and you'll get a little escape. The habit loop is officially set. Okay, so this brings us to the great myth of willpower. We think we should just be able to force ourselves to stop, right? Just say no. But from a brain science perspective, that's almost impossible, especially right when we need that strength the most. Think of it like there are two parts of your brain at war. You've got your rational brain, the smart, logical part that knows smoking is bad and thinks about long-term consequences. But then you have your habit brain. It's ancient, it's powerful, it doesn't do logic, it just runs on autopilot, and it wants that reward right now. And here is the fatal flaw in the willpower argument. When you get stressed, guess what's the first part of your brain to go offline? Yep, your rational brain. The moment you need that cognitive control the most, it just vanishes. And your old automatic habit brain takes over completely. And that's why we always fall back on our worst habits when we're tired or stressed. Willpower never even stood a chance. So if fighting our brain is a losing battle, what on earth are we supposed to do? Well, this is where we introduce a simple but really powerful twist. Instead of fighting the urge, what if we just leaned into it? So here's the radical idea. The next time you feel a craving, instead of trying to resist it, what if you just got genuinely curious about it? Don't try to make it go away, don't indulge it, just investigate it. What's actually happening in your body and your mind in that moment? Now, this approach was actually tested in a study with smokers, people who had tried to quit and failed on average 6 times. And they weren't told to resist smoking.
In fact, they were told the exact opposite. Go ahead and smoke. The only instruction was to pay really close attention and just be curious about the actual physical experience of smoking. What did it taste like? What did it smell like? How did their body feel, really?
And what happened next was this profound shift. The smokers went from just knowing something was bad for them in their head to actually feeling it in their body. It's the huge difference between knowledge and wisdom. One participant summed up her experience perfectly. She said this: by simply paying attention, she realized what smoking actually was. Once you strip away all the stories she'd built around it. It wasn't cool, it wasn't satisfying, it was just gross. The reward she thought she was getting just wasn't real. And this slide really makes that critical distinction. Knowledge is what's in your head. I know smoking is bad for me. But wisdom is what's in your bones. It's that visceral, undeniable, gut-level truth that smoking tastes like shit. And it turns out curiosity is the key that unlocks that wisdom. This whole process leads to something called disenchantment. It's not about forcing yourself to stop. It's about seeing the behavior so clearly for what it really is and realizing the reward isn't actually that great, that you just naturally become less interested. The spell is broken. You're no longer enchanted by the habit. And look, this isn't just some nice, feel-good idea. It actually works. Studies found that this mindfulness approach was twice as effective as the gold standard therapy for helping people quit smoking. Twice! It's powerful proof that working with our brains is so much more effective than fighting against them. So how do we actually put this into practice? We can use this amazing principle of curiosity to create a new, healthier habit loop that basically writes over the old, destructive one. Here's the new loop. It's 3 simple steps. First, just notice the urge when it comes up, without any judgment. Second, get curious. What does it actually feel like in your body? Is it a tightness, a tension, a restlessness? Just observe it. And third, feel the joy of letting it go. As that urge naturally passes, that feeling of freedom, that becomes the new reward. You see, every single urge we feel presents us with a choice. We can mindlessly fall back into an old habit loop that doesn't really serve us anymore, or we can use that moment as an opportunity to get curious and to step out of the cycle. So the next time an urge shows up, and it will, what are you going to choose? Will you fall back into the old habit, or will you step out of it?